Well, I finally made it out to Beaver Dam Lake. Conditions look really nice. Water's up a little bit. It's over the road. I'm on the northeast side of the lake. Looks like might be a difficult launch. I can see bottom there. I'm not going to be able to get my trailer back in far enough to float the boat. And my other problem is that I forgot to put these PVC pipes on the back end of my trailer. It's such a short trailer. It's only 8 foot long, hardly any tongue at all between the boat and the car. I can't see this boat from the cab of my truck when I'm backing up. That's why I normally have a couple of poles stuck into the frame here in the back so that I can just watch those poles through my mirror. This thing jackknifes like a son of a gun. I'm by myself. I don't have anyone to direct me. Oh, I wish I had a partner today. They could give me signals. But worst that happens is that I can't get it in there right, and I'll just drag the boat down to the water. Maybe somebody will be here when I come out this afternoon and help me drag it back out. I was able to get some money out of the ATM if I had to wait around a while, but I could go to the other side of the lake, go southwest of here, and they got a nice boat ramp down there. It costs $6 to use the ramp. The problem is that I have to go around my elbow to get to my asshole because the road's flooded here. I'll have to backtrack and go all the way around the north side of the lake to cross the bridge and then come back south towards Raleigh to get to that place. That's about a 7-8 mile run. And I'm anxious to go fishing, so we're going to see what we can do here. Underway. Heading out to the main lake of Beaver Dam. I brought 6 rods today. That ought to carry me through. Got a spoon plug on that one for deep water trolling, a little George for deep water jigging, spinnerbait, and a shallow water jerk bait in case they're up on the shoreline. And I've got 2 crappie poles trolling right now. One's got a small spinner on it, and the other one's got a 2-inch grub, curly tail grub. I've got a depth finder, but I didn't hook it up. I fished this part of the lake for 30 years. I pretty much know every nook and cranny on it, but if fish are hard to find, I might have to do that today. Trolling up the northeast shore. This feels like a very small fish. It's a little white perch. This lake is full of these things. They don't get too big in here. Now there are some lakes, if I go north of here to Butner, Lake Butner, they have these fish that get up to several pounds. I enjoy catching them though. Alright, skunk is out of the box. Looking for bigger and better things. Just caught a white perch, and as soon as I threw my line out, I got another one here. Must be a school of them there. Darn, I'm getting a bite on my other pole now. Yeah, sometimes you get in a school of these things, you can't fish with 2 poles. They'll eat anything. They'll eat worms, clams, corn. But it's I'm out here on the northeast side of Beaver Dam. I've only been out here about 10 or 15 minutes, and I've probably caught 6 or 7 little white perch. I got out here kind of late this morning, had some delays. I don't know if you can see all that grass along the shoreline there. It comes out 5 or 6 feet from the shore. At night, this time of year, the threadfin shad get up in there. I don't know if they're spawning or what, but if you get out here at daybreak, it'll just be literally millions of them just splashing the water along there. Once the sun starts coming up, they disappear. I guess they move out to a little deeper water. So I think these white perch probably fed on those earlier today or last night, and they're just stacked up along the shoreline. They haven't migrated off to deep water yet. But I'm going to pass all this up. I'm looking for something a little bigger. It almost looks like this is the north end of Beaver Dam Lake, but it's not. Right there where I'm pointing, you see all that riprap over there along the shore. There's a bridge crossing the lake there. And even though it's very shallow, beyond that, there's as much lake that way as there is that way. Miles and miles of it. I have a catfish hotspot up in there that I fish in the summer. It's one little creek that runs through acres of nothing but knee-deep water. The creek's about 10 foot deep. But I'm going to fish over in this corner. Sometimes when conditions are perfect, you know, like when the water's up in the bushes, you can really smoke the largemouth bass and the white bass in here. About 10 or 12 years ago, I hit the mother lode on Mother's Day. Caught over 200 bass on topwater plugs. It was amazing. I don't see any activity along the shore right now, so I might have missed that strike. But when Pam and I were out here a month or so ago, we found an old dead tree limb sticking up in the middle of this cove with nothing around it. We didn't get any bites there. But this could be the time of year where crappies just move right up against that. Sometimes that's all it takes, is an isolated piece of cover to really draw fish from a long distance around. So we're definitely going to give that a hit before this day's over. I've been fisherman for over 60 years, and I've caught my share of catfish and gar, but I was targeting them when I caught them using organic bait. But something changed about 5 years ago out here. Not just here, but other lakes. I started catching a heck of a lot of them on lures. Now this is May, but if I came back out to this shallow area, it's only 5 or 6 feet deep through here. If I came back out here in June and I trolled for these crappies, I'm just as likely to catch a catfish or a gar as anything else. I catch catfish on spinner baits, crankbaits, especially crappie jigs. It's just fascinating to me what the difference is. How could I go all those years and never have it happen, and then all of a sudden it starts happening? One of those fishing mysteries. Well, coming up here to that little log Pam and I found a few weeks ago, I put my hat on, my cam hat on, and see what happens if I make a couple of casts on it. Here's my log. I've made 2 or 3 casts on it, no bites. But things like this are a great target. It will hold fish at some time. These logs, you know, they break off in a storm, and they float out from shore, and they'll drift around the lake. And normally when you see one out in the middle of nowhere like this, it means it came to rest there for a particular reason, especially if it's been there more than a month. And usually that reason means it hit the shallow edge of a creek channel or a little hump or something and got stuck there. And usually those depth changes indicate a place where you can find fish sometimes. Just to that log and got a nibble. Feels like a crappie. If it's eating size, I'll put him in the cooler. Well, look at him wiggle. Let's see what this is. Usually crappies don't fight too hard. Oh, it's just a bigger white perch. Yep. Maybe a white bass. I can't really tell. Oops, got another bite. Let me take care of business here. Reeds sticking out of the water here. This is a large corner of a large cove. Those reeds tell me this is shallow water, and that would be an excellent place for fish to spawn in the spring. A lot of times you can come into a situation like that and you'll see the reeds wiggling as the fish move up against it. I don't see any activity this morning, but that's the kind of place you want to look for, say in April, around this part of North Carolina. Here at Beaver Dam, probably 35-40 minutes, and I managed to catch a dozen or more white perch. It's not what I'm looking for today. I might have to settle for that, but before I do, I'm going to check out something else. This area I'm leaving right now is traditionally active this time of year. Most years I come up here in May and the carp are just swarming all along the edges here, and then a week or two after that the bass will stack up in here. I don't know if they're feeding on those carp minnows or what, but there's no activity up here in the shallow, and the vegetation seems a little more sparse this year than in years past. This lake's close to 30 years old, and often we have droughts that drops the water depth. This is only about 3 or 4 feet deep along here, but we haven't had a drought in a while. I think when the land is exposed, vegetation reseeds, and then when it floods again, you have really good fishing there. I doubt that they'll intentionally drop this water level. Raleigh's had some severe droughts in the past, and I think they want to save every ounce they can. But this is fishing, and I love it. I love exploring, and that's what we're going to do today. Unbelievably slick calm. Look out there. Not a ripple to be seen. And disturbingly, not even a splash from a shad. No bait coming up to the top, nothing. And I was just daydreaming about that a minute ago, and suddenly I ran across a gar that was finning near the surface of the water, and it flipped. About made me pee my pants. I wasn't expecting that. But still on the hunt. I've moved off shore probably 75 yards. I guess I'm in about 8 feet of water out here. Trolling at about speed number 2 on my Minn Kota 40-pound thrust. This motor came with a 2-bladed prop, and when I transported it, I would just lay it down, no problems. I bought a 3-bladed prop for it because I thought it might do better in heavy vegetation, and it does. I'm happy with the 3-bladed prop, but beware, if you buy one and you lay it flat, either in your boat or in the back of your car, those blades are going to be touching whatever it's laying on. It's not going to lay flat, and when you get to the lake, it's going to be slightly warped, and then when you turn the motor on, it's going to have a vibration that fish can feel. So it took me a couple of times to figure that out. So now when I store my motor, transport it, I use a little block of wood, just a small chunk of 2x4 that I put underneath the motor down there near the blades. That keeps them suspended, no pressure on them, and I end up with a motor that's whisper quiet. There's a tip for you. What do we got here? I'm trolling along this riprap, and something really nailed it good. Maybe it's a white bass. I don't know what it is. Oh, it's a little largemouth. Come on up here, buddy. Yeah, man. He sure hit it hard. Hit a small beetle spin. As I came up off that point there, I caught 5 small bass, smaller than that one, and decided to move in a little bit and caught one small medium. So, heading the right direction. Here we go again. Another bite. Don't know what it is. Still along this riprap. Find out here in a minute. Oh, he's got a little weight to him. Look at that. He's pulling. Oh, it's catfish. That's what I'm talking about. I talked about that earlier today. How you can catch catfish on lures these days. He hit that beetle spin. Just fascinates me. This is a channel cat. I'll show it to you in a minute if I can get this hook out without having to dig my pliers out. Alright, let go of my lure. See how streamlined he looks? When I worked with Mr. Piper at Piper Pest Control, I caught a bunch of these one time at Lake Gaston. I put them in his pond, and it only took a couple of years for them to mutate. Their heads got really big compared to the size of their bodies. I mean, they got to be hefty sized fish, but their shape changed. I used to call them jugheads. See you later, alligator. I've been trolling along this riprap up near the bridge on the north end. And I swear there's been a lot of traffic along here. I don't know why. That's old Weaver Road. It's not a shortcut to anywhere that I'm aware of. Most of the time during the week, on a weekday, you hardly ever see a vehicle there. I guess the weather's so pretty, everybody wants to take the long way around. This sort of loops a long way around the lake, connects 2 major roads, Highway 98 and Highway 50. So maybe they're enjoying it as much as I am. Thinking about going into this little cove over to the west. Traditionally, I don't do too well in there. It's just a bunch of standing timber. But things seem different on the lake today compared to most Mays. So who knows, that might be where they're stacked up. I might even get wild and go up the lake underneath that bridge. You know what they say, the grass is always greener, right? I'm on the west side of Beaver Dam Lake, and you see this long clay bank. It seems to go forever. It does have a few logs laying into the water, and those might be good places to try, but you can spend a lot of time working that shoreline if you were casting. Normally I don't like to cast, but if you look closely you can see where the clay changes composition, and you get these big rocks, stratas of huge rock beds there, and then it changes to medium-sized rocks. I mean, there's some the size of basketballs, but most of them are the size of softballs. And it's got some green vegetation as you go up, and then a little cove with a tree coming out. I've fished that tree before. I've lost enough jigs and hooks on that thing to start my own tackle shop. I may not catch anything here, but this is the kind of place I would stop and try to make a few casts. Fish tend to go to where things are different, and this is definitely different. What you see on the shoreline could be happening underneath the water too. Got a bite. That's what I'm talking about. Oh, it came off. Felt like a pretty good sized fish, but to be honest, it was probably a catfish. That's what it felt like. I don't know if you noticed how my lure came up after I lost that fish, little 2-inch curly-tail jig, 1/16 ounce head. But after I lost that fish, my lure is kind of raggedy. It came up like that. And that's just as important to correct as if it had grass on it. Because if you troll a lure like that, it's just going to spin around and around. And when you get ready to wind your line up, it's going to have so many twists in it, it's just going to create knots. So always make sure that thing's hanging straight if you're going to troll. There are other ways to fish with a plastic worm where you might want to hook it through the center of the body. You know, wacky worm fishing, but that's not what I'm doing with this jig. I would cast again, maybe I'll do that. Hung up solid on the bottom. I'm still in that area I was talking about where the composition of the rocks changes and then comes over to this tree by the cove. And as usual, I'm snagged up. Sometimes all you have to do is wind down to whatever you hung on and push, and she'll come right out. Sometimes that doesn't work. Yep, like I said, make sure this thing gets back straight. I don't know if you can see the details, but I've had to bite off the top end of that because I've had so many bites on it, it actually split the tip of the grub. I got a pocket full of them. I'm just too miserly to put another one on. Yep, as expected, hung up again. I just don't have the right touch to fish this little spot. Let's see what we can do here. Nope. Oh, it came loose. Got on the back side of it and it pulled off. Got lucky again. The enchanted forest here. All this standing timber. You can probably see my fishing line. A lot of people who crappie fish would never use 10-pound Cajun red line, but I often fish mess like this. I feel like stronger line gives me an advantage. Also at this lake, the water's kind of stained. It doesn't make that much difference what kind of line you're using. If I was on a deep, clear lake, fishing strictly for panfish, I would probably drop down to 4-pound test and probably get more bites. But up here, this is a good compromise for me. 10-pound Cajun red. You can buy it just about anywhere. It's not the cheapest line, but it's not super expensive either. The old Weaver bridge that I showed you a little while ago. 25 years ago, there used to be a nice bed of stumps just on the south side of it in a deep channel. You know, it's probably 12, 15 feet deep there. And I used to catch a lot of bass, just drifting worms through that. These days, there's so many people that fish down here off the bank, you can see the trails coming down. And they've either hung big fish and broke off, or they got snagged on the bottom and broke off. But there's probably miles of fishing line in this area right here. So I don't do any drifting here anymore. But this is a good place in the summertime, you know, when fish are seeking deeper water. Come on out here with some wacky worms and just let it slowly drift down around these bridge pilings. Sometimes you can do pretty good, especially if there's a wind blowing out of the north. That gets a pretty good current started through here. But I'm going to go exploring up here on the other end of the lake. It looks huge, and it is huge, but believe it or not, you could walk across this. It's probably less than shoulder deep for the most part, knee deep in a lot of it. But there's a creek channel that runs up the west side of this lake, and I'm going to troll up there till I get to some standing timber. It's been a couple of years since I've been back here. Caught a catfish on my jig, and now I got, what is that? baby white perch on my beetle spin. Just trolling up this side of the lake, and you can see where there's a little cove here. They were at the mouth of the cove. Nothing worth staying on. Continue the march. I haven't caught a crappie all day. I've been out here over 2 hours. I've caught probably 2 dozen of those white perch, 5 or 6 little bass, and I think 4 catfish. None of them have been big. Who knows what's around the next corner?